Welcome to the Small Business Sweet Spot. I'm your host, Barb Davids, website marketing consultant and SEO strategist. In today's bonus episode, I'm chatting with a fellow business owner to bring out their best tips, tactics, and tangible strategies for helping you grow in business and life. Thanks, Carly, because I really
Thank you.
appreciate your time today. So thanks for coming on here. We're going to talk all kinds of like touchy-feely stuff, I think.
Okay, this is gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Yay. Let me start by asking what your sweet spot is. So just briefly, who you help and how.
So mainly it's business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders. And so working with them just to help them whatever they're going through, whatever challenges that might be causing like that noise in the brain. And it could be something present day or something, present day that's even linked up to the past. We clear that so they can get objective again and kind of get back on track. And when they get back on track, they'll often come to me because it might be something like a slowdown in business or whatever, but usually it's also something happening in our personal lives as well. So we want to help them get back on track so there's more balance, gratitude, appreciation for their day-to-day life, and they can just get back into their objective center and stop thinking about this stuff that's like driving them mad
Yeah.
and get to the next step. I find that, yeah, entrepreneurs, business owners, and stuff, even leaders, they just like we're all like, oh, I'm stuck here for how long? Like it's too long. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So we're going to talk about procrastination.
Yes.
And do you think it's happens a lot out there with like business owners, or do we even know that we're procrastinating?
We don't fully understand why it occurs, but every person on this planet is a procrastinator. And it's actually like not something we're going to get rid of. It's just something that it's wisdom to like understand. So you stop beating yourself up and fine tune it in a sense.
Yeah.
So it's like almost becomes your superpower. So we'll dive into that, which will be fun. And the actual like why that behavior is occurring, like what's going on internally within the mind that drives that behavior, which is really fun. And yeah, so we can definitely dive into that and like how to like sort of strategize and solve it. And
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm game to just start going into that. I'm fascinated
Oh,
by it because
okay.
I realized last year fully that I was just such a bad procrastinator. And probably like a lot of people think that they kind of know that, but I didn't really see it until last year. I always thought I was busy and being productive, but I absolutely was not.
Yeah. So yeah, with procrastination, what winds up occurring is we prioritize the things that are most valuable and important to us, right? So we can look at our lives and we can see that every day you might be procrastinating on something that you label you should do, you need to do, you have to do, you're supposed to do, right? However, you're not doing it, right? Because it's the shoulds. But what are you replacing it with? If you actually pay attention to all the things that you're replacing it with, what you realize is you're not procrastinating on things that are important to you. You're procrastinating on all the shoulds, right? So we are destined and we're just born to just like walk away from shoulds as often as possible. And this is a funny dynamic for entrepreneurs and business owners because what'll wind up occurring is we wait to do those things till very last minute. If we can't delegate it and we have to do it, right? Those are the things that we're like, I don't know why you keep waiting until the last minute. And it's because you hate doing it. You keep thinking you should do it and you have to do it and you need to do it. And that's how much you don't want to do it. And so all the things that really truly inspire you get prioritized. And procrastination is actually there to help you stay on priority, which is hysterical because we judge it and we think that we're not supposed to be doing it, but it's taking you off and taking you away from low priority items. So if you keep procrastinating on something, is really take a look and ask yourself, what is this thing? Can I delegate it? Yeah. So even today I was delegating something because I was like, "Ah, just procrastinating on this. There's no way I'm ever going to do this." And I was like, I don't even know why I'm like pretending I'm going to do this one day. And I was like, I'm just going to hire someone. Done and done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what if like
Mm.
I'm working on maybe a new offer or new
Mhm.
service or something like that, and I procrastinate like trying to finalize that and look at that, but it is important and it should be prioritized. So what might be the reason? Because if my head is saying nope, it's not really important, but I know logically it is, what
Yeah.
am I missing? What's not connecting?
Well, there's still that should, right? Like it should be important. And we ask the question, should according to who? And it might be some other individual that we've met or studied with, and someone in business that told us these are the specific steps to take in our business and on our path, right? So it should be important according to who. And the interesting thing is, this is where, like, we'll have the shoulds on a regular basis. And like, I like to think should according to who, right? And usually the person pops in my head and it's again, mentor, teacher, business owner, or something that I'm like thinking I need to prioritize this because this person said so.
Yeah.
And then I go in and I think to myself, okay, there are parts of this that are great for my business, but like, what parts do I not like? Like, where do I want to reframe this in a way that it would be more fulfilling and inspiring to me? Right. And what's interesting too is sometimes we drop it completely, and sometimes we take what already exists and craft it for ourselves. I had a client who we were working on sales and marketing, right? And she's judging herself because she's like, I'm not doing Instagram, I'm not doing Facebook, I'm not doing any of these things. And she's like, and I should be doing it, and I have to be doing XYZ and funnels. And I was like, I've been working with you for a while. This is not your style. I know her well enough to know like she loves speaking and she loves events. And I said, "Do you create clients off those?" And she goes, "Yeah, I do great." And I was like, "So why don't you just keep speaking?" I said, "If you just kept speaking and you kept doing events and we fine-tuned your sales process there," I said, "would that be something that you would be able to do more of and you would want to and jump at the opportunity?" And she's like, "Yes." And you see her light up. And I was like, "So you don't even have to have this online dynamic. The online dynamic is also available. However, there's people who really love it and really enjoy it, and they don't enjoy what you're doing. So it's like you do you, go be inspired, go be fulfilled, do whatever's necessary, like online, but it doesn't have to be that crazy." And so this is where it's like, should, according to who, do we want to drop it? And is there a better way for us to do the same thing in a way that's very fulfilling and inspiring to us that you're not going to procrastinate on? Or is there a way that we can reframe it, right? Can we reframe it into something that's a bit more inspiring and fulfilling? Like even being on podcast to me is content creation, because I thought about it and I was like, I don't like trying to pump out content all the time. And I thought, how can I create more content and something inspiring that has more depth and detail? And I was like, podcasts. I love speaking. And so even having these dynamics on podcasts is an opportunity to speak. Sometimes I have like quotes that I put up on my Instagram and Facebook, right? Those quotes are pulled from all these transcripts. I get I get the podcast, I transcribe it, and then I actually just have ChatGPT. I upload it to ChatGPT, and I say pick out from my particular section like specific quotes, and it pulls it out, and that's the stuff I say. And I'm like, thanks, ChatGPT. So like, I'm like, I love ChatGPT now. By the way, it's so helpful for like
Yeah.
simple stuff like that. But again, it's like, how do you make it easy? Because I used to just sit there and be like, okay, come up with a quote. What do I say? And it's not that hard. We're doing it on a regular basis, but it's
Right.
like, how do you make it easier for yourself in a way that's inspiring? And then sometimes you're able to do that exact thing, but in a unique way that's fulfilling to you, as opposed to just like sitting there and beating yourself up for not doing something that you don't want to.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I've been overthinking my Instagram for sure. And I think that gives me a couple of things to think about. And I think it could help for other people too, even if they're not doing podcasts, like if they're doing newsletters or if they're doing, I guess that would be the big one, but like they could take quotes from their newsletters and put that
Yes.
up if they wanted to. And it doesn't have to be like this fancy schmancy templated newfangled Instagram post if they don't want it to be.
No.
So,
And one of my teachers taught me this in marketing, and after a year of just posting and I just kept coming up with new stuff, and she's like, "Carly, you don't have to." She goes, "Go back to what you wrote." And she said, "And you could even refine it to whatever's updated." She goes, "Same audience, same people." She's like, why do you have to reinvent the like cart every time?" And
mhm,
I was like, "Why am I doing that?" And this is the truth, is that we are repetitive by nature. It takes us a lot of like we have to listen to things over and over again to really understand the message. And so even in our marketing, it doesn't need to be new all the time.
mhm.
And so even after you have a certain amount of content out, even after 6 months, people don't notice that it's repeated. Sometimes if I'm really tired, it's just copied and paste from 6 months ago. And I'm feeling more energized. I'm like, let's rewrite this a little bit, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
for the most part, like it's a lot of reframing content. And if I come up with something like just off the cusp where like, oh, I really want to share this, I'll just sit down in that moment, do a quick writing and save it for later,
Yeah.
or I'll save notes for later. Like I have content creation days where it's like I save notes on the things that inspire me that I'd like to talk about. And those are the new things that maybe I learned that I want to share. And
Mhm.
otherwise, it's like repurpose it. Because remember, too, like as business owners and entrepreneurs, especially when we're wearing all hats, there's some days where you're sick, man. Like I got the stomach flu this weekend And it wasn't a content creation like day, but if it was, there's no way I'm pumping out
Yeah.
like all that new content. Like I was like wrecked. That would have been the day where I'm like copy and paste, like nobody's gonna notice this one. And just easing up on yourself a little bit. We have so many unrealistic expectations on how things are supposed to look, and it's like repurpose, you like reuse, pull things from everywhere, and like just put it all together in an easier way. How
Right.
can you make your life easier in a business? Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's definitely challenging enough as is.
Do you think those unrealistic expectations come from comparison?
For sure. Yeah. So we'll go out and we'll see. And someone like, and I've had this before too. I remember when I was in the group, they're like, Carly's the best at content. Like she creates it all the time. And I was like, I am not. Let me just tell you what's happening. Because they just thought every day I was creating something new. And I was
Mm.
like, no. So we make an assumption and a judgment based on what we perceive, but not actually what exists. And when I could share with that person, it's like, I'm not creating content every day. I sit down for a day, that's it. And
Yeah.
I pump out as much as possible. Like it's about once a month. I pump out as much as possible. And I just like have it all pre-scheduled. And I like later. There might be better things, but I use later. And it's all pre-scheduled. And then every day my phone sends me a reminder to do like an Instagram post. And then I just
Mhm.
copy and paste from whatever I already created. He actually thought I was doing it on a daily basis. So
Mm.
he has this unrealistic expectation then that to do something like that, you're doing it on a daily basis.
Mm.
When we look at social media and we look at all these different dynamics, we're not seeing the back end, right? And so there's so many opportunities for misperception.
Mhm.
So this is the first thing. It's like whenever you see anything on social media, if you don't have background data, like ask yourself, how do I know that's true? Like that's the one question. It's like, how do you even know that's true? Like, can you prove to me that that perception about this individual is true? And usually that kind of diffuses like the internal bomb pretty quickly because you can't. And it's like, so you're making an assumption, and it's like, now let's work on things a little bit more. Like, what are you expecting yourself to do that is potentially a bit unrealistic? Yeah. And by the way, there are people out there who love creating social media every day. Usually they're in marketing as well.
Yeah.
They're probably the people that you hire that are like, I want to do this every day, which
Right.
again is delegation. This is where it's like, if you don't want to do it anymore, delegate it to someone like that who wakes up every day and is inspired to like create content and create posts and stuff. Like that's who we delegate to, the person who is fueled and loves that. So yeah, it's quite an interesting dynamic. And the cool thing is too, is we'll also have unrealistic expectations when we sometimes don't even understand the scope of something. So usually when we're beginning a project, we'll either overestimate our capabilities or underestimate them, right? So we'll overestimate it and then all of a sudden we're stuck and we're jammed and we're putting ourselves down because we didn't get it achieved in the time frame that we thought we should. However, the reality is like this is just the time frame that we could get it achieved, right?
Mm.
Because maybe this is your first time. Maybe you ran into some knowns, right? Maybe it wasn't as big of a priority as you thought. Like we talked about priorities and procrastination. So maybe you thought this was going to get done and you're prioritizing something else. My whole week was planned to do some like fun, crazy studying. I was like hunkering down on all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, midway in between, my husband, he's from Canada. So we're just finalizing immigration process. And I got the green light to upload all my documents. So everything stopped. And now that's all I'm doing today too. Everything stopped and that's all I'm doing. So I could sit here and judge myself and say like, oh, I should have done it and I should have finished it and I could have finished it faster. But the reality is I'm going to prioritize what's more important to me, which is like that particular component. My family is more important to me than that dynamic. So I'm not really procrastinating. I'm basically just prioritizing what's valuable. So
Mm.
it's really important, again, just to pay attention because if I sit here and have an unrealistic expectation that I should have done that other thing, I'm going to beat myself up. But when you know and understand yourself well enough, you'll say, of course I prioritize that. It's more important to me. Like,
Yeah.
that's why I did it. And then it's like, okay, there's nothing to be upset about. And I'm just going to move it around because that's what I want. And this feels more fulfilling to me. And I would be really upset if I had to put this aside and like wait another week to get it done. I don't want to do that. And
Mhm.
so again, like you listen to your language too. It's like, I want to do this. I want to do that. I would love to do this. Not the I shoulds, because the I shoulds are the comparisons. They're unrealistic expectations for you to be something that you're not. But when you say, I want to, choose to, desire to, those are all the things that you're inspired by, fueled by, that I can rely on you for.
Yeah. How do you balance procrastination with discipline?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Every day you wake up and you're disciplined in the things that you want to, choose to, love to do. So if we look at our lives and we broke it down every single day, you're going to find that there's certain things that come in that have a repetitive pattern. And this is cool because if you actually journal on this and pay attention, you'll notice that every day, even if I stepped out, and let's say you have motivational coaches and all this stuff, we all stepped out. There are certain things that we can guarantee you're going to get done on a daily basis. Nobody has to remind you to do. You don't ever procrastinate on. And that's true discipline, right? You're inspired from within. And so what's really cool is, again, the things that you're procrastinating on are the things that aren't as valuable. And this is cool too. They're not linked to those dynamics. They're not linked to those dynamics. You could, if it's something that you can't delegate and you have to do, you could shift your perception by actually seeing how these things that you don't want to do, don't like, keep procrastinating on, serve the things that show evidence that are really, truly important to you, right? So for example, I just gave you an example in my own life. My family, my husband, is valuable to me. He just got prioritized over business. Perks of being an entrepreneur. I still can take all my calls and my podcasts, and in between, I'm like working on my husband. Perks of being an entrepreneur. So he got prioritized over all this business stuff, right? And I was like, I will reorganize it because this is important to me. So we know my life demonstrates that he's a top priority. That is what inspires me. That's what fuels me, even to a greater degree sometimes than my biz, right? Love this guy. So for me, if I'm procrastinating on something, I can go look and ask the question, how would doing this specific action or task serve me and my family in that relationship? So right now I'm procrastinating on it because I don't see the link, right? I genuinely don't see the link. But as soon as I see that link, then all of a sudden I can put that into action and make that happen, right? It's really cool. So that's where it's like, it's really important to know yourself. We pay attention to that inner language. I should do this. I need to do this. I'm supposed to do this. Those are things that you actually don't really want to do that you're going to procrastinate on. If it's not necessary, dump it. Be honest with yourself. You could dump it. If you can delegate it, delegate it. And if you can't delegate it and you have to do it, then we're linking to the things that are important to us and finding those links because that's our deeper intrinsic why. And to find that deeper intrinsic why, we want to pay attention to the things that you're very disciplined on already, that I know I can rely on you for, that every day you wake up and you do no matter what, and this is cool because it's just utilizing the power of our brain to actually get us to do things. And all of a sudden that thing that, like, when you make enough links, by the way, all of a sudden that thing that you really dislike becomes inspiring. And so this is funny because when I first learned this, I still was working at this one company and it was a very small company. And I just, man, it's like one of those places where it was so small. I still wore all hats, and everyone just seemed to complain there about doing stuff. So it was like, Carly will do it. Carly will do it. Carly will do it. Right. So we moved offices and we got new furniture and it was like, Carly will build it. And I was like, I don't want to build furniture. Like, I hate building furniture. It's like my nightmare. So I was struggling so much that day at work, the first day I had to build furniture. I'm just sitting there. I'm cranky. I'm swearing like in the middle of the office. I'm frustrated. And I go home and I'm like, I have like 4 more days of this. I'm never going to make it. And I sat there and I linked how building that furniture would assist me, one, in my family, my learning, my education. And I did so many links that I got a tear of inspiration. And I actually cried for not seeing like the unseen, right? I like cried and I went in the next couple days and I was like, I can't wait to build furniture. And I just sat there and they're like, you're in a good mood today. And I was like, I worked it out. So when I say, like, if you can't delegate it and you can't dump it, it's like, find out how this particular task or action is meaningful to other things and keep doing it until you feel your heart open, you get a tear of inspiration, you feel grateful to do it. And all of a sudden, you don't have to have motivation. You just wake up and you're like, yeah, when I was done with the furniture, it was funny. I was like, I'm sad. I can't like do it anymore. Like, I didn't realize it was going to be that inspiring. Yeah.
That is that's a 360 for sure.
For sure.
Yeah. So you have a different perspective on life purpose.
Mhm.
Could you tell us about that?
We kind of talked about a little bit, which we can really extrapolate it even deeper, right? But our life purpose is what we demonstrate on a daily basis. There's this dynamic where people will say, go find your life purpose, right? Like it's something almost that people label as outside of themselves, right? It's outside and we have to discover it, we have to find it. It's innately inside you, like, from the day not even you're born, like, when you're conceived with purpose. Like, we are purpose-driven human beings, and so you're never without a purpose. It's not outside of you, it's inside of you. And this is cool because our life demonstrates what's meaningful to us. This is fun because it links in with procrastination. You'll see that the things that are meaningful to you and purposeful, like part of your purpose, is genuinely linked to the things that you're not procrastinating on daily. It's the things you're most reliable on, disciplined on, focused on. We also, this is where it's also a struggle, is we assume a purpose should look a certain way. We assume that it should be like grandiose or this or that, or it has to be so big like our purpose. But it's like, it's just what's meaningful to you. And the truth is that's huge for you. It's not important if it's big for the outside world. It's important how it feels for you, like how it hits you, right? Like I remember a friend of mine, he met this guy when he was younger and he was a ditch digger. And I loved this story. This story brought me tears of inspiration. Because basically this guy was teaching him how to dig ditches, right? On the side of the road. And that's where the water piping would go. And that's all he did for a living. And he looked at him and he's like, this is one of the most important jobs you'll ever do. He said, because I don't know if you know this, but every time we dig a ditch, we're bringing water to all these cities and all those people are getting all this water. So you'll drive by this guy on the side of a road digging and think nothing of him. You think nothing of this guy. Well, he's sitting there knowing that he's providing water for everyone,
Mhm.
right? And it's like, so we have something so meaningful that is also considered sometimes so small. And this is what I'm saying. It's like, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. It matters what you do. It
Mhm.
matters what's important to you. And I see this a lot with parents too, like people who have a high value on their kids and that's their purpose and priority. It's like, that's what's meaningful to you. That's what's inspiring to you. So like, let's actually dive in and see like what the bigger picture for that is, because it may just be like, I have one mom, like she really, 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 really loves raising their kid in a way that is going to help them get their inspired purpose out. And this kid at a very young age is 100% already connected to his inspired purpose,
Mhm.
right? He already probably around six-ish, it already started and they're nurturing it and getting it going and getting it moving. And he's already had a business, like a little business, but he's starting it on the next steps and figuring out what he wants to do and how he's going to create it. Like that happened. Why? Because that mom stayed focused on what was meaningful to her.
Mhm.
And the thing that was meaningful to her was this kid. That was the highest priority. And so again, you could have like the big vision, like an Elon Musk or an Oprah, but who's to say that these other visions aren't as big? So we can get really caught in what it's supposed to look like and what it should look like. But what I truly love to know is, what does your life demonstrate? What do you actually love doing? What's important to you? What can I rely on you for? What do you spend every day doing? You
Mhm.
know, and whatever that is, my other favorite question, how do I make money off of it? I mean, I love that question.
Yeah.
How can I create money doing what I love? And you just keep asking that question, by the way. It took me a long time. Like I have ideas now on how to do it, but I just repetitive. Every time I would even just shop. How do I make money shopping? I just sit
Mm.
there and be like, how to make money shopping? No ideas yet, right? How to make money like investing in beauty products. This is important to me, or like investing in beautiful furniture. How to make money doing that? And I just keep asking the question until answers start to come. And then I can be like, great, future business side note, future this, future that. And you realize how much you can actually create income off the things that you love as well. You
Mm.
know, so it's fun. Your life every day demonstrates your purpose, right? Every day it's going to show me in how you're spending your time, your energy, what you're inspired to do, what I don't need to remind you to do, no motivation, no procrastination. And your bank account's going to show me too, because that's going to be what you spend the most money on. So if I break down your bank account, like this is fun every month. If you break down and itemize things and you look at it on a monthly basis and a yearly basis, whatever you spend the most money on is most important to you. And it's not always the house. And if it is the house, like why you have that house, right? But it's
Yeah.
not always the house.
Interesting. So one of my priorities is my dog because it goes to daycare.
Yes.
Because I want to make sure that if I can't be home or there's some extended thing that's happening, I send him to daycare so he can go play with his friends. So
There you go. See?
yeah.
And it's kind of cool because it's like when we know that about ourselves, then we know, and one of my top priorities is my dog too, because he's my family,
Hmm.
right? And when we know that about ourselves, it's like, well, I'm gonna make sure, I really want to make sure I spend time with my family today, which is also my dog,
Yeah.
and I prioritize my day around that. And I feel more fulfilled when I do that, as opposed to being like, I need to do it this way. I should do it this way. I shouldn't be doing it this way. Like,
Hmm.
no, I'm gonna do life the way I love to, and it's meaningful and inspiring and fulfilling.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And there's with that procrastination, I think, and I can speak just for my own purposes. I can't speak for everybody, but like there's a sense of shame that comes with it or self-shaming, I guess, because I should be
Mhm.
doing something. And even just now, I was talking with somebody yesterday about how I feel bad that I sit and I watch TV because I actually don't own a TV. But
Yeah.
I do watch some things on the phone like while I'm eating, just to like while I'm eating. And I feel a little bit ashamed that I'm not doing something more productive, like
Yes.
reading or even just sitting there and enjoying it or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they reframed it for me to say, You don't have to feel self-shame about it. Like change it and just say that you are allowing this to be your downtime. Like it's okay to do that." And I never saw it from that perspective. I'm still like learning to like reframe the thought. But where I'm going with this is I think you have mentioned too that there's something connected with pride in how that goes against our health and whatnot.
Mhm.
But so I wonder if you could talk about the shame side of it and then the pride side of it.
Yeah, I love the TV example. I feel like I was, like, born to, like, just help people not feel guilty about TV between, like, my upbringing and what I know now.
Yeah.
My upbringing was with a dad in the film industry, so,
Mm,
as a kid, I was reading scripts, right? He would bring home scripts and he'd be like, "Tell me what you think of it." So I would read scripts, like, starting at, like, 12, 13 years old, I started
mm,
reading scripts. It was super fun, and then I was watching TV and movies all the time because it wasn't just like a thing you do. It was like a job, a business, a culture, and it was fun. Like, you sit with your dad and he pays attention to it in a different way, and he's like, "There's a mistake, there's a mistake." It was interesting. And then you're going on movie sets, right? It's
mm,
very interesting. And now present day, like, I still love TV and movies. I genuinely love them. I learned at a certain point that we watch very specific things because they're meaningful and purposeful to us, right? We feel shame about it because the world has put this down. They say you're not supposed to do it. It's bad. It's wrong, right? It's bad, wrong. This is not like what you're meant to do. I was working with a male client and he was judging himself for not working like at the time. And he was like, "I just binge watching this TV show." And I was like, "Well, what are you binge watching?" Right. And he told me the show that he was binge watching, and it had to do with entrepreneurs within a family dynamic, like growing and building a business. And I
mhm.
said, "How funny, because we've been working on your highest challenges around business and family." And I
Yeah.
said, "What are you learning from this?" And he's like, "Well, I think what I keep when I watch it," he goes, "It is a TV show, but he's like, it's realistic in the sense that they're actually showing like the dynamics of real families and real fights that actually occur that I can relate to." And they kind of see him get over it and get to the other side. And I was like, "That's why you hired me. Why would you not want to do that in other ways as well?" And so we sit here and judge ourselves, but it's so funny because the very thing that we're doing and working on is also, he's just getting a different insight from this writer, from
Mhm.
this TV show. And I was like, "What have you been able to apply from that?" I was like, "I know some of it's gonna be crap," but I was like, "What hasn't been?" And he kind of laughed and giggled and he had a few things that he did. And I was like, "That's awesome."
Yeah.
And so we just sit here because we're like, "I'm not supposed to. I need to not do this. It's bad. It's wrong," because society tells us it's wrong, right?
Mm.
And even a client she's like, "Oh, I'm just like," she goes, "I'm gonna doom scroll through Instagram." And I was like, "You are not doom scrolling." I was like, "Are you looking at kid stuff?" I was like, "Are you looking at like interior design and stuff?" And I just started naming off all the things that I, basically knowing her purpose and what's meaningful to her, knew she was looking at. And she's like, "How did you know?" And I was like, "That's what's meaningful to you. Why wouldn't you want to fill your day with things that are meaningful?" And if in that moment you're tired, you're exhausted, it was a long day at work, It's the end of the day. You just want to chill out. You're just looking at all the things that are fulfilling and inspiring to you. And it's like you see it. She gets ideas, she gets inspired, she'll take notes on things. And here you're calling it doom scrolling when it's actually sometimes project planning for future trips with your kids, understanding personal development. Sometimes you read a quote and you come to me and you say, I want to work on this because I feel like a gap here. Right. And sometimes it's like, oh, this is an idea for future that I want to do in my living room and dining room.
Mhm.
And you're calling it doom scrolling. So really pay attention to what you're doing because our shame is an unrealistic expectation on what meaningful looks like, what life is supposed to look like, what we're supposed to look like. And it's when we've labeled something as bad or wrong, when it's truly just a behavior and you don't do something without getting some kind of value or benefit out of it, right? You don't do anything without getting a value or benefit out of it. Find out what you're getting out of it. And this even goes into the extremes when I work with individuals like who have challenges with alcohol or even drugs sometimes. We don't do it if we're not getting a benefit. If you keep beating yourself up and not asking that question, you don't know what you're getting from it. And that's why people go back to it because they didn't know what they were getting from it before, the very specific thing. So you didn't replace it. You didn't get to replace it. I remember even eating disorders and stuff like that, right? Like that's a big one where food is like a challenge. Every time I go in there, it's like, what is food giving you? Connection. It helps like with my anxiety, right? I feel depressed, right? I feel bored. And it's like, great. Let's find out how it's actually serving you, what the gift is. A lot of that comes up with alcohol as well. With specific drugs like cocaine, it's like, well, it gives me self esteem, right? Like I know very specific things about very specific drugs now. It's like it gives me self-esteem. It makes me feel better. It gives me energy. It's like, where else can we get that?
Yeah.
Like, and if you sit here and keep beating yourself up and like telling you're bad and wrong, it's like you're not going to understand why you're doing the behaviors you're doing because some of them genuinely we want to transform. Like those last ones, I give you an example of them. Some of them we'll engage in anyways because it's like, it's Instagram TV, it's not a big deal. But the ones we want to transform, we want to really find out what benefits we're getting out of it, how it's serving us. And that clears the guilt and shame, but also gives us the opportunity to ask the most important question. I'm relying on this particular substance, this particular thing that's actually damaging my health, my life, my body, because I'm getting this out of it. What are alternative options? What are alternative solutions that would work better for me? And then all of a sudden, you find things that really help you transform, right? Like, and it's really cool. This really works. So, this is like the shame component. It's like anything we label as bad or wrong, there's still a purpose behind it, but let's find out what it is. The pride component is really fun too. Shame's easier to catch because that's what we've been taught all our life, guilt and shame. However, we're not really taught about pride to the same degree. Pride is the pride before the fall, right? So we talk about the pride before the fall and we get humbled by life and we get humbled by circumstances. So, for example, if you're very puffed up and very proud, which we all have been, and I'm pretty sure our romantic partners and our children are there to really assist us and all our family members in just humbling because they're our most critical individuals from time to time. But know that you're attracting critical or criticism and when you're impacted by it, by the way. If you feel impacted by that criticism, you're a bit puffed up in that moment. Your pride, you're over equilibrium. You are a bit self-righteous, and the level of criticism and humbling circumstances you're actually attracting will indicate how self-righteous you're being. Usually that's like, it's my way or the highway. My way's the right way. I'm right, you're wrong. And we have a black and white perspective. We all get caught in this. All of us. All of us. And even in those moments, it can be quite challenging, even having the information that I have, especially, because like I said, family is your like greatest humbler. You'll love them so much. They're the ones who are least scared of us. Like, I love them. And they come in and they humble me. And in those moments, I'm like, where am I puffed up right now? I'm also really triggered and I'm must be really proud. And then it'll hit me and I'm like, oh, Carly, like, chill. I'm like, chill, you're getting nailed. And sometimes that's the case. So whenever we have too much pride, we're very self-righteous. And the reality is that people want to disconnect from us. People don't want to talk to us. Anyone who you talk to who sits there and tells you how you should live your life, how you should be, you need to do this, you have to do this. We want to disconnect from those people at a certain point because you're like, I'm just done with that feedback, man. I just want to live my life and I want to be myself and I'm getting away from this. When we turn into that, that's when we're being really proud and really puffed up, right? We have ourselves on a pedestal. We often want to hold on to the pride because we think that that's linked with success, Like we've kind of been taught that it's linked with success, but that's not true. Like just being humble and grateful is you're highly successful there. Pride creates circumstances that actually can crush us and give us major challenges and ruin our business, and like crazy things can occur when the more puffed up we are. My husband, he was working with an individual who got in a couple plane crashes, and each time you could see how high and puffed up and above equilibrium they are. The greater the pride, the bigger the crash. And no joke. So this is why we really want to pay attention to not like latching on to someone puffing us up. Right. And I'll see this now sometimes where someone might be talking to me and all of a sudden they're puffing me up, puffing me up. And there's a part of us, and you'll feel it inside, that's like, this feels so good to like just be like told I'm awesome all the time. And now I'm like, whoa there, buddy. Let me tell you all the challenges that come with me, because you're gonna puff me up too much, and this is gonna like, I'm gonna get humbled if I keep latching on to your feedback, you know? So it's also really paying attention to that, because we can slow that down. If someone's just sitting there and feeding you compliment after compliment after compliment, you feel the pride wanna just like, it's like feeding it, right? And I just immediately respond with like, "Yeah, and I start to give some of the also other information about some of the challenges that occur as a result of whatever they're sharing, because that just like humbles me as well. Because I'm like, this is gonna puff me up. I feel it, and my pride wants to eat this alive right now, and I'm like, back off. So it's really fun. Like it's a fun dynamic, because in true leadership, we really want to try to focus on balancing our shames, balancing our prides, and doing it to a greater degree so we can stay more in that equanimity state. But we're not going to be there all the time. Like life is life, and like it throws you curveballs and you're going to get reactive and flare up. But when you have like these different tools to help you balance it out to a greater degree, it just really helps you be more resilient, more adaptable to change when it starts to come forward.
Yeah. I have so many things that this gave me to think about and like start asking questions for myself and just being more aware in certain circumstances and situations. So lots of good stuff there. If somebody's listening to this, what would be like one takeaway that you would hope someone would walk away from with this?
Yeah, really like pay attention to your life, what it demonstrates, what you love doing, what you want to do, what you choose to do every day, and kind of throw away the shoulds every now and then. Like when the shoulds come up, sometimes it's like you can reflect and be like, according to you, but sometimes just like throw them away and be like, "Pfft, not going to deal with you today." Pay attention to what's truly meaningful to you and really start to track that, because that's your purpose. That's part of your destiny. And then the next step is like, how do I incorporate that into my life every day? Like, what can I do to like step into the short-term goals around this, but also the really long-term goals? Because when you do that and you're connected to those things that fuel you the most, that you're inspired by, no reminders, nothing, you feel different. You are more resilient. You get more adaptable to change. The why is so big. It's not that the how even falls into place. You're going to make that how happen. You're going to notice all the opportunities that have all been there, because it's like, this is too important. I won't let this go. All the people that you've seen accomplish great things that you're inspired by, they're not special by any means. They connected with something so important to them that no matter what they experience, you're not gonna give up. Right? That's true success. So it's like, find that thing. Pay attention. It's not gonna be just one thing, it'll probably be a couple things, and just incorporate it every day. Dedicate your life to it, because you'll feel so fulfilled, more adaptable, more resilient, easier to get over things. You'll face challenges, you'll feel more confident. Yeah, it's like life changer.
Yeah.
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 I love it. All right.
Mhm.
Well, if you have blown some minds, which I'm sure you have, and they want to reach out to you, where can they
Yeah.
find you?
So definitely my website. So they can come to carlypepin.com. You can reach out me directly there. So I have the contact form and everything. And then also just any social media channel. Like have fun. Yeah.
All
I'm
right.
on social media. I like it.
Great. Thank you so much for your time, Carly. I really
Mm.
appreciate it. This was such good stuff. Thank you so much.
Thank you too.
And that's a wrap on another guest expert episode of the Small Business Sweet Spot. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope you love the show. You can find all the links to connect with me, Barb Davids, and our guest in the show notes. If you loved the episode, share it with a friend who's ready to thrive in their business. I'll see you in the sweet spot.